Legally, Karabakh was handed over to the Azerbaijan SSR by Stalin and became a de facto part of Azerbaijan. Etymologically, Karabakh is not an Armenian name, it's a Turkic one. It's not called Artsakh on the map, and the only people who call it Artsakh are Armenians. Armenia occupied space in the late 80s, and the territory has basically separated from Azerbaijan, but Azerbaijan claims de jure sovereignty over it, and the international community, including NATO, recognizes that it's de facto Azerbaijani territory. Historically, yes, it was part of Armenia, but it was part of an historical Armenia which has had a Muslim majority population, including Turks and Azeris, all over its territories on several occasions. Armenia's history is not monolithic. It's very pluralistic. Culturally, the space has been very mixed, which is the case in many of the urban centers in the Transcaucasus. The ultra-nationalistic government which took over the Armenian space after the collapse of the Soviet Union has failed to recognize the multi-ethnic and multicultural reality of their nation's history. Armenian space was ruled for a long time by Transcaucasian Turkic Khanates all the way up until the Gajar, that abomination of a monarchy, the Gajar monarchy, which is one of, if not the worst monarchies of my nation's history, gave up the land via the Turkmen-Changlistan treaties as a result of losing their wars with the Russians. But the thing that adds fuel to the conundrum here is that a national identity and a national consciousness has eluded most of the Caucasus for most of its history. Everyone in the Caucasus has historically defined themselves by their location, by their local identity, and their region, rather than anything that can be construed as a national identity. Ganjites have identified as Ganjites, Bakuites have identified as Bakuites, Nakhchivanis have identified as Nakhchivanis, Karabakhis have identified as Karabakhis. There were also multiple religious and ethno-linguistic communities living in these spaces who, for the most part, got along with each other quite well until the shitfest began in the late 19th century and early 20th century. People think that the Caucasus is defined by its tribal loyalties and blood feuds. They're not right, but they're not wrong. A pan-Caucasian culture was prevalent in the Transcaucasus throughout this whole region, which made the locals identify with their similarities rather than their differences with their neighbors who came from completely different religious, linguistic, and socioeconomic backgrounds, and cultural backgrounds, and ethnic backgrounds. Then the divide and rule policies of the Russian Empire created a turning point in the region. Then, as the Soviet Union was retrospectively falling apart, Armenia occupies Karabakh because of its irredentist foreign policy and made Karabakh into Karabakh becomes a superficially independent sort of city-state with dubious democratic and legal credentials. Legal complications prevent Armenia from just annexing the territory into the Armenian Republic. Russia is basically the one who contains them, so to speak, with their military bases and troops in Armenia, which shows that they're keeping them under their night watch so that they don't do something stupid that will make the region spiral out of control again, as it did in the late 80s and in the 90s. NATO wants to expand to Russia's borders So the real situation is that no one involved in the regional politics, that is to say, neither the three Transcaucasian nation states, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, or Iran, Turkey, or Russia, is willing to change the status quo of the Southern Caucasus, or comfortable with allowing any border changes or changes to the legal status of the breakaway regions and occupied territories in the Southern Caucasus. Turkey may back Azerbaijan. Iran may back Armenia and sell it arms to fight the Azeris, which the regime has issues with. Russia may be hostile to Azerbaijan, but all of these political endorsements and alliances have a threshold. The solution is no solution. By not doing anything, everything will be accomplished. The situation fixes itself. Every attempt made by Armenia and Azerbaijan to take territory back through the use of force or other means have only worsened the situation and basically closed the window of opportunity for the two sides to reconcile, at least at this stage. Armenia and Azerbaijan's armies are bigger than the average European country's army. They've both spent so much state expenditures on their militaries rather than the development of their two countries because of Karabakh. Because the official status of both nation states is non-recognition of the current legal status of Karabakh. That shows how they're not willing to walk away and will keep the conflict alive until they get what they want. So quite frankly, the fate of Karabakh is up to the flow of the universe. And this is where I end my dissertation. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.